Welcome to this podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and joining me today, someone I'm very excited to have on, someone I've had in all my notebooks for a very long time to have on. It's my cousin, Ryan Lucchesi. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. Listen to a few of the cast, and I've been waiting for a UFC one, so this is going to be fun.
It's just a perfect confluence of events with the UFC being the only sport back and everything. But you're surviving the pandemic well. I believe you went to back to work this week, right?
Yep, we went back to work. Not full schedule. I'm in construction, so a couple guys on a few sites here and there. Just trying to be safe about everything.
Is there anything different like happening now with you guys? I mean, you guys have to wear masks on site a lot of times anyway, right?
Yeah, we have to wear masks on site, like when demoing or in crawl spaces and all that. But now it's no matter what type of construction, whether it's demo or finish, we still have to wear masks on site. We try to maintain our distance from everybody, just following the rules. So that's, it's different for sure in a weird way, but we're keeping it going.
Very important rules. I mean, you're living in the state where there's protests almost every day up there in Michigan.
It's ridiculous. I mean, we want to get open. At the same time, we don't want to get everybody sick. Nobody knows what's going on. Yeah, strict rules. Almost feel judged if you cough wrong in public. Yep. If you see somebody without a mask. It's really weird. It's just weird times we're in. But like you said, the UFC is back, so that's a normalcy to our life, at least mine.
That's right. I was going to say that is something we will not protest. How about that transition there? Huh?
I'm 100% good with that.
So UFC did make a comeback. As you said, UFC 249 was finally held after, I believe it was 7-8 weeks or so of not being able to have fights. The first sport back, as President Dana White said, with Joe Rogan, Daniel Cormier, John Anik calling and not sitting together, which I thought was hilarious. There were just no crowd. Obviously, they were in Jacksonville, Florida, because the Florida governor declared professional sports essential there. I don't know if I want to contest that because I just loved watching it anyway. So we're not going to worry about the ethics of that. And yeah, there was a limited people in the corner and stuff like that. They were talking about in the pre-show the rigorous testing, and there have been a couple fighters, or at least one, Jacko Sueza. I can't say words.
Souza, yes, him and two of his cornermen did test positive for corona. So that fight against Uriah Hall was pulled, which would have been a good way to start out. I mean, all the fights on that card were stacked. It was sad to see that one not show up, though.
Right, but overall we had that, and then we had a fight night on Wednesday night, recording this on Friday night, and same thing, same procedures of testing and stuff like that. Had a couple people drop out due to weight cuts this week, which I guess makes sense with the weird circumstances. But overall, I mean, the UFC, I think, came back with a bang. Obviously, we don't know the numbers of the pay-per-view sales, but the crowd, or not the crowd, the crowd on Twitter, the energy with people watching was there. The hype was there for both events, and overall, it seems like their procedure went really well down there in Jacksonville. What were your general, thoughts, takeaways, other than just being like, awesome, sports are here, I don't know who's going to win this is great, kind of thing?
I mean, they did a great job with it. As far as not having the crowd, that was cool to watch, and we did get to see that on UFC when it was in Brazil right before everything had fully taken its course and all the shutdowns began. But it was interesting getting to hear the corners speak so clearly, hearing even like the announcers, DC, Rogan, and Anik, they were mentioning how the fighters could hear them, because after one of the fights, Greg Hardy even mentioned a shout out to DC. Thanks for telling me to check the kicks more often. So it was, as far as that side without the fans and how they did everything, I think the UFC just did a great job in showing how to come back.
Yeah, I think Bill Simmons on his podcast, or one of the podcasts, or they did an article or something, is like, which NBA team would most benefit from hearing the announcers, instead of their regular coaches, and the unequivocal answer was the 76ers. Hilarious and true.
There. Then you can run better plays than the coaches can.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, that was an interesting thing that I don't think was talked about. I think a lot of people, you go no crowd, okay, the walk-ups is going to be a little weird, right? Because that's when the crowd's really into it with the music. And I don't know, I don't think they were that bad per se. But then when you get into the fights, I thought we knew we'd obviously hear the impact a lot more, because a lot of times you can only hear big leg kicks that are checked anyway just because, of the force, but you don't get to hear the punches as much just because every time there's a massive punch, the crowd's there to react and you just don't hear the impact. And I think it was really, it's brutal, obviously, Coliseum-like, but it was really interesting to be able to hear that impact. We're just like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. This is what actually it sounds like, with the force these guys and girls are throwing.
Oh, yeah, the body shots connecting. You just hear the smack so much more. Even when a person landed a clean headshot, you usually don't hear headshots. Now you're hearing headshots, and you just understand a little bit more, like you said, the force that they're impacting with.
And also, you touched on it, but gotta say, what a card to come back to. I think I had a couple buddies over. Ohio was opening up, so I thought it was okay. Don't shoot me.
Social distance.
Social distancing, took a break for a night. We're all good. Disinfected. But I think other than the first fight, the undercard, outside of that, and then there's the one female fight that was really weird that had a 30-27 and then a 27-30 decision, which I don't think I've seen in a long time, which is ridiculous, a split decision like that. All these were hits. You got everything the UFC wants to sell itself on throughout the night. So it's just a fantastic card as well. Before we dive into the specifics of the fights.
Yeah, and I'd like to go back, even the early prelims. I know that first fight between Ryan Spann and Sam Alvey, it was a little bit slow, but there was still some good action and good technique. Ryan Spann trying to hit that head arm choke standing up in the first round, Alvey's face turning just purple, and yet he smiled the whole way through it, and that's why his nickname is Smilin' Sam. So he ended up losing that fight, but that was still good grit. Not as much action as the rest, but I enjoyed that. The Bryce Mitchell fight over Charles Oza, that was just a dominating performance. And I know he out-wrestled him. I was talking with one of my buddies at the time of that fight. I was questioning, would they make this all 10-9 rounds, or would they drop it to 10-8s? Not only did they drop it to 10-8s, but one of the judges dropped it around to 10-7. Bryce Mitchell just completely dominated that. That was great technique on the ground. What makes that even all the more interesting is Charles Rosa is a black belt in jiu-jitsu on the ground, and he got worked over by Bryce. So that was interesting to watch for those undercards. I thought they brought it.
Yeah, and I think you have a good point with the undercards, with the technique. I was telling Max, I'm like, I love to watch the fights even with the Wednesday fight night where the main card isn't as good as a traditional, numbered event. But watching the undercard for even that, it's like you're not watching like the Bengals and Redskins play NFL football, It's not just crap players all around that might be interesting just because it's close at the end. Like these are still, like you said, black belts in multiple disciplines going out there and fighting. You can't, the process to make the UFC is so rigorous. No matter what, you're not going to be able just to go in and see somebody be like, this sucks. This guy can barely punch with anything and he, can't wrestle and this kind of thing. Like, no, they have to hit so many different regional events to be able to even make it there. That your point about the undercard is fantastic. It's a lot of times the undercards are the best fights.
Yeah, because you don't know what to expect from those guys, and a lot of them they surprise you. So, and then with everything happening, considering how good the fights were, even though they're not allowed to bring in international fighters right now until Fight Island opens up. But until then, it's all U.S.-based fighters who are already in the country and have established residency because of the no-fly restrictions. So we're working on a limited roster here, the UFC is, and they're still throwing together these great cards that have a lot of action involved.
Right. And I do want to say just one thing on the scoring, because I know people with the UFC, it took me a while to get it too, that are interested in it but don't understand how it's scored. So the default, it's scored by round, and then you add up the round scores together. And the default is 10-9. So if someone, has the better action, but it's pretty even, 10-9. If someone's dominating, right, then, barely any hits, that's a 10-8. And like you said, a 10-7 round is almost unheard of in this level, I think. At least, of all, I'm relatively new to the sport. But going back and watching all of the classic fights, Gustafsson, Jones, all that stuff. I don't think I've ever heard of a 10-7. So, you see 10-9s almost all the time. Then 10-8 is this was like a dominating performance, almost analogous to like a 14-0, 17-0 quarter in an NFL game, I'd say, right? Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, that's close. And then to hit that 10-7, I mean, if we're trying to compare it to NFL, that's a 35-point first quarter shutout. Yeah. Essentially, to get a 10-7. I don't think I've seen it. I can't recall any. So for him to lose a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight, but a 3-round fight by 5 points on one of the scorecards, it's, like you said, it's unheard of.
Right. So yeah, prelims delivered, and I mean the main card did too. Where do you want to start on the main card?
If we're jumping to the main card, there's a few more prelim fights I would like to touch on. I don't know if we want to jump back.
Let's go for it.
All right, for the prelim, I just like to run through it. The Vicente Luque versus Nico Price, that was a banger. Nico's eye was messed up, and he would have kept fighting if it wasn't for that doctor stoppage. I mean, that's just how these guys are bred. So that was a great banger to watch. They were throwing hands, elbows, everything. Yeah. Moving on, then we had that the women's strawweight fight, which was kind of awkward, like you had talked about. I was really hoping Michelle would get it. Unfortunately, she didn't, and it went to a decision. Just didn't do enough. Alexei Oleinik versus Verdum. Oleinik looked good. If you were listening to the commentary, they were saying he came in looking the best he's ever looked before. Slimmer, tighter, trimmer, and he was still faster and was able to take Verdum, which was cool. Now, the biggest one on the prelims was the Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone.
Your boy.
Donald is my boy. I love the Cowboy. It lived up to the hype. I wish Cowboy would have won, but can't be upset at the decision. Pettis was throwing with more power throughout the fight, even though he was kind of surprised that he got the nod. But you know what? Hats off to the both of them, and I know Cowboy will be back. He doesn't quit. He doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Did you see the post-fight pictures where Pettis and Cowboy were both having like a beer together afterwards?
I missed that where they were together. I saw them hug it out right at the end of the fight, and then I saw Cowboy on his Instagram after. But no, I missed those pictures. That's
funny because people were like social distancing. It's like, well, they did just like swap bodily fluid all over and punch each other in the face. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, let's not talk about social distance when it comes to fighters. Did you not just watch what they did to each other for 15 minutes?
Nico Price.
Years?
Oh yeah, it's insane. The Nico Price fight was interesting. I mean, his eye just swelled up and completely shut. And I mean, it's funny to me. I'm applying medical school right now, as you know, and hopefully some of the people who know me know. And whenever the doctor comes and they bring the doctor, I'm like, see. If I'm taking away, if you're there as the doctor, right? So I'm not saying this as a fan, but as the doctor itself. I mean, you'd stop the fights 15 seconds in every time. Like this is like that's not none of this is medically healthy. So it's just always funny when they're like, you know what? Yeah, he can't see anymore. We really gotta stop her. Like he's bleeding from 3 different places. Like, yeah, now's the time. It's like
yeah. Look at what they're doing though. So overall, but yeah, yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, like you said, it's not safe overall to be doing.
No, that fight was a brawl, though. The Nico Price fight, that was a brawl.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'd say those prelims, they were great. Those prelims could have headlined any other UFC fight night. Hell, those prelims could have been the main card on the pay-per-view.
Oh yeah, easily. I mean, everyone was surprised with Cowboy versus Pettis, and of course, they did that because it's 2 of the more well-known fighters on the prelim that gets put on ESPN. I know you and we've had ESPN Plus for years now, so it doesn't even matter. It doesn't factor to us. But I mean, think about it. What you see, those 4 or 5 fights in a row, especially the Nico Price and then the Cowboy fight. I mean, then how could you not want to buy the pay-per-view? Like, you're telling me you're going to, at 10 o'clock, you're just going to be like, all right, yeah, I'm done. That was enough. No, of course not.
If you're looking for action, that was the fight to watch. And like you said, come 10 o'clock, you're going to want to see what happens next. If the free ones were that good, the paid ones are going to be just as good.
And we were rewarded with Greg Hardy. I can't believe Greg Hardy's a legit MMA fighter. I almost feel like dirty complimenting his MMA, with everything that happened.
I completely understand that too. He does have 2 losses, but neither of those losses have come at the hands of him really losing. He went, the first loss that he had was due to an illegal knee because the opponent was grounded, and he kneed the opponent in the head. So he would have won that one. His second loss, he stood and he banged with, the dude's name is escaping me. But another heavyweight who is legit, and that's his only real loss. He does have a no contest because he used an inhaler in between rounds one time. So that's interesting. But yeah, overall, he's not a bad UFC fighter. I don't think he would have got this fight, though, if Yorgan De Castro did not break his toe or jam his toe on that check kick. Because he wasn't doing really well against those kicks, and he was starting to slow down until Yorgan actually hurt his foot. And that's when Hardy was able to turn it on.
Yeah, you could tell just right there. And it's like, I get it. Obviously, if I broke my toe, I would sit for weeks. But, in terms of fighting stuff, you're like, okay, these guys fracture bones. I mean, we'll talk about Tony Ferguson, fractured his orbital bone and was not going to stop. So it was a little weird that he just completely shut down, De Castro did. Because you could see the moment right there, and he just stopped. It stopped, and then the fight was over. Hardy's loss, by the way, was to Volkov by unanimous decision in November.
Yep, that's correct. I can remember the name. But halfway through the second round was when he checked Yorgan's kick, and then he just stopped throwing punches. He just kind of stood there, moving around, bobbing. It's almost like if he played practice mode in UFC 3, and you just had the guy standing, like when the computer, and you literally just kind of push the computer around. That's what he looked like to me.
Yep.
Just fighting back, Greg Hardy got some practice throwing punches on him.
Yeah, basically. So, yeah, I mean, Greg Hardy 3-0. 30-27, sorry, I should say, for all 3 fighters for the unanimous decision. And up next, after that, another just excellent fight. Calvin Carter, Qatar? How do you say it? Cater?
I think it's actually Cater. I want to say Qatar, but I'm sure it's Cater. Calvin Cater. I can't
pronounce normal words a lot of times on here, and people just names are another step.
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
Especially when we get to Ngannou's opponent, that's going to be...
I got that for you. I'll back you up on that.
Beautiful. Cater defeats Jeremy Stephens by knockout in round 2. I mean, he pummeled him in the second round off of that. And it was interesting because Stephens, had the better of the beginning in this featherweight bout. So what did you see from this one?
Stephens definitely did. He started out strong. And you know what, though? Cater... don't doubt him. He is up and coming. He's great. He had his last fight against Zabit, which he lost, but that was the highlight fight of the night, the main fight on the main card, which those are typically supposed to be 5 rounds. However, because they were in Russia and Zabit is Russian, Dagestani, they worked it to a 3-round fight. And if you go back and watch that fight, Cater was just warming up in the 3rd round as the beat was starting to go down. So another 2 rounds, Cater would have had that fight. So coming into this fight against Jeremy Stephens, I wasn't doubting him. I knew it would be a banger. I wanted to see Stephens win. I like Stephens. He's been around a while. But unfortunately, he didn't get it, and Cater's just working his way up through the ranks now.
Yeah, I was about to say, Cater up to 7th now in the featherweight division. Pretty top heavy featherweight.
I haven't checked on that yet. I did not know he jumped up that much.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. So he went up 2 spots and Stephens dropped 1 spot. And this was the fight too where Cater talked about very candidly in the post fight interview with Joe Rogan how pissed he was that Stevens had missed weight. Because he missed weight bad, didn't he? Let's see. Let me look. Yeah. That's halfway to the next class, right?
Yeah, that 5 pounds, that's another thing that's unheard of here. Don't know how that happened or what went wrong. We can try to say it was the situation and the circumstances, but you have how many other fighters having to make weight too. So, but yeah, maybe that's what fueled him, and he was able to come out and just take that aggression and that disappointment in his opponent and just send it right back to Stevens.
Yeah, it was just tough to do that. But yeah, Kattar up to 7th with that nasty elbow knockout. Also, Ryan Spann from earlier, he's up to, now that I look at the list, he's in 14th now, ranked 14th for light heavyweight. He got on the board. Proud of him. Wow, good for him. Yes, he deserves it. He's been coming through.
I guess I don't really know too much about Spann. I have seen his fights. I just can't picture what he's done, but the fact that he's crested the top 4 or the top 15 to 14, good for him. He's going to keep it going. Yep, for sure. So after the Kattar fight, we started getting into the really, I mean, not that those other fights were not very hyped, but then with this Francis Ngannou fight, this is when you're like, all right, this is an incredible card, really, that this is just the third best fight. Francis Ngannou versus his opponent that you're going to say the name of. Actually, wow, I think I spoke too soon. Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I got the last name, and I'm pretty sure on the first name. But yeah, this, I don't know if you want to start it off about this fight.
I mean, the day before, I remember, so heavyweight fight, the day before, I remember looking at, some of the, like, they were posting highlights, stuff like that, and I saw Ngannou and stuff make weight, and I was like, that can't be real. That is not a real man. And sure enough, in this fight, it ends in 20 seconds, and he, there was Rozenstruik came out, had a couple kicks, stuff like that. I'm just going to say his name really fast. That way it looks like I know it.
Breeze right through it.
And then there's a pause and Ngannou counters, and if you it took a while because you're like, oh, there was a giant flurry of pace and power, but then you watch the highlights and literally one punch landed until he went down. It was Ngannou landed one punch the whole fight, and that was it. Knocked him out.
That's all he needs. Like you said, he's not a real human. Okay, you don't need anything more than one punch with that guy. Now, Rozenstruik, he has knockout power. That's how he's come across his victories. He's on like a 6-fight win streak. Was on a 6-fight win streak. He had his last fight, he was losing all the way up until 4 or 10 seconds or something left in the third round. And then he knocked out Alistair Overeem with an overhand. Yeah. And so he made the call on Francis. He said, I hear there's a big, scary guy ahead of me named Francis, and I want to take him on. I think that was a mistake. That was definitely, don't call out Francis. Just don't. It's a bad idea. He'll end you in 20 seconds, as we saw here. And, yeah, it was that flurry. Nothing really did hit until that left. I believe it was a left is what hit Rozenstruik's chin and is what took him out.
Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Ngannou is scary.
It's just a scary, scary guy. Because my dad always jokes, watching old fights, he'd be like, if I saw Nate Diaz in a bar, like he'd be like a cocky guy that just annoyed me, and I think I would take him. And obviously he couldn't. But it's like, if some of these fighters kind of look like that, you're like, you're not that strong, then they would destroy you. Especially Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
In every sport I follow, there's like 3 people I just can't stand. In the NBA, it's Russell Westbrook and Reggie Jackson, and like in UFC, it's Nate Diaz. I don't have anyone else yet, but I can't stand him.
Not a nasty Nate fan.
No, I just can't. His swagger and all the time. Except for the first Conor fight, and I didn't see him during his prime, but a lot of times I've just seen him get the crap beat out of him by Conor or by Masvidal, and he always gets cut in the first round. I'm just like, this is, I don't know. It's unreasonable.
He does get cut, but hate him or love him, he's an exciting fighter to watch. He's another one of those guys. who you're not going to get him to stop. Not only are you not going to get him to stop, but he also comes alive in the third, fourth, and fifth round. He starts out a little slower. So for that fight against Masvidal to be stopped, it's like, what could have been? What could have came of that if they could have just let that? He didn't care about that cut on his face.
That was a weird stoppage.
Yeah, let him bleed out and finish the fight. He'd be much happier doing that, okay? Let's just be honest.
That's true, though. It's definitely true. And then, so Ngannou does not move up in the heavyweight ranks. He was the number 2 contender coming in. Rozenstruik was 6th, and neither of them moved, actually. So Ngannou's number 2 because the number 1 challenger is Daniel Cormier, and the champion is Stipe Miocic. And we are just waiting for them to book the DC versus Stipe rematch for trilogy now, with each of them with one. And then I know DC's been on record saying that he wants to do this and then retire. But at this point, like, Stipe right now he's a firefighter for coronavirus, which much respect for that. But this is a UFC podcast, not a coronavirus podcast. So we're waiting for Stipe to fight against DC, and Ngannou's kind of just, I mean, he's earned this chance. And then, of course, I realized going through and doing notes for this that Ngannou's already faced Stipe for the belt and lost in 2018 via unanimous decision. But I mean, you can't argue that it's his time now to have a title challenge, and he might have to wait till the end of the year, possibly, depending on how long the Stipe DC fight takes to get booked.
Well, I heard Dana was on another podcast, and right now, well, Stipe's been going through stuff. He had some eye surgery that he was recovering from, but then he had mentioned how fighting will always be there. So he's taking his time right now. However, when Dana came on and he spoke about that, he mentioned fighting won't always be there, at least for Stipe, because he's aging. And the older he gets, the harder it's going to be. I don't know if that was Dana calling Stipe out, trying to bring him back, or it was just a general statement. Yeah, there's a few ways this could go, whether they do get this Stipe DC match set up, or maybe they do an interim belt with DC versus Ngannou.
Did you hear about the rumor of a certain light heavyweight champion coming up to fight for an interim heavyweight belt against Ngannou?
Oh, if that rumor is true. If it is true, I hope Ngannou breaks bones. I can't. Oh, that is a nasty man to call. You saw what happened to the last guy to call Ngannou out. He got knocked out in 20 seconds. Now, John Bones Jones, much better than Rozenstruik, for sure. But good enough to call out Ngannou. I don't know. Got to give it to Bones. I mean, he's got guts, and right now there really is nobody down at lightweight for him. He has ran through everybody. So if he does want to come up now, would they make that for the interim belt, though? Is that what that one would be?
I would think so. I mean, or maybe, and then Stipe, DC, because I think there's been rumors that Stipe might retire too after this fight too. So maybe there's not even a unification bout. It's just then it just transitions. I'm not sure how that would work. But yeah, I mean, John Jones on his Twitter was answering questions about Francis Ngannou, and they had a little bit exchange. And then the last tweet: who would you guys consider the quicker and more technical striker? Thiago Santos, who John Jones beat in a unanimous decision, or split. It might have been split. I can't remember. It was a while ago.
It was a split. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Or Francis. If you guys think I wouldn't take this fight, you're insane. I have absolutely nothing else to prove as a light heavyweight. I'd love that big money fight right around now. Said the deal.
Now, yep, he doesn't have anything else to prove. He, in that fight when he took on Thiago, Thiago blew out he tore his whole knee, ACL, MCL, PCL, whatever CLs may be in the knee. He tore everything in like the second round. Continued fighting and got the decision. If he did not tear, if he only tore like 3 of the 4 ligaments in his knee, he probably would have beat Jones. Yeah. I think that was his fight. It's just unfortunate the way it went down for him. I do think he is probably more the technical striker over Ngannou, but like we said, Ngannou doesn't need to be technical. One hit is all it takes.
Right. You can't even tell if Ngannou's technical. Like, if you want to actually break it down, all his last 4 fights have been ended in the first round, you know? So,
yeah, there's not enough footage to tell how technical he is.
Yeah. I mean, to me, too, though, like, I mean, John's right. At light heavyweight, like, he has nothing else. And, of course, there's been rumors about Adesanya moving up into light heavyweight to take him on, too. But, I mean, it's not like he's wiped through the division right now, you know? I mean, his last couple fights have been really close with Dominic Reyes and Thiago Santos, who are his top 2 contenders. And, yeah, I know it'd be a rematch. But, I mean, you have the Polish man, Jan Blachowicz, whatever, that guy. He's number 3. So, I mean, it's not like he has an empty division right now like it has been in the past. I mean, John Jones has been ruling this division forever. So, but then again, I mean, I wouldn't complain if he moved up and did that. I think it'd be a fantastic fight. It'd be interesting to see if they want John Jones to stay down at light heavyweight and, you know, clean it out and then see what happens after Stipe and DC maybe next year.
Yeah, yeah, he can stay down there to clean it out, but then wins his next fight, and who's it going to be against?
Yeah.
Because I don't see anybody that's a super, and I hate saying this because every time Jones fights, I want to see Jones lose. I'm just not a fan of Jones. He's a great fighter. I'm just not a fan. So I'm always cheering against him, but there's not a viable option. I was hoping after Wednesday it would be Anthony Smith. Unfortunately, we saw how that went down, so it's definitely not going to be him. Yeah. I think maybe the division needs to work itself out. If he can jump up for a fight in heavyweight or have Israel come up to be a new challenger, let the rest of the guys have like one more round of fights, maybe something will emerge for him after that. But right now, he's right. There's nothing really too much left to prove. And if Ngannou is his next opponent, I am not mad about that at all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, poor Anthony Smith. They thought that was going to be true. I do think a John Jones-Reyes fight rematch would be interesting. Did you think he beat Reyes?
At first, no. Once again, that was just me disliking him. But the points were made. Those championship rounds. In a regular fight, it's only 3 rounds. But any championship fights or the headliner of the main card are 5-round fights. Those right. 4th and 5th rounds are referred to as the championship rounds. And you saw why John Jones is the champion. Because in those rounds, he beat Dominic Reyes, hands down. Now, I thought Reyes won. Yeah, this was that Texas card with the messed up scoring. I thought it should have been essentially a 3-2, which would give us 48-47 score, I believe. I don't know, my math's not the best. But yeah,
good.
For that one judge to score it, a 50-46?
Yep.
That's ridiculous. Dominic Reyes won the first 2 rounds for sure. Jones won the last 2. And then that 3rd round
was the swing round.
Yeah, there was a swing and it was a coin flip. So I think it was a 3-2 round fight. Definitely not that 4-1. But he won the 2 heavier rounds. And if a fight's to be weighted, I would weight it heavier on the last rounds, because if this was a real fight till death, yeah, you may start out strong, but in the end, Jones is the one who's going to survive.
Agree completely. So, yeah, I agree 100%. So the co-main event was Henry Cejudo, the bantamweight champion, taking on former bantamweight champion Dominic Cruz, coming out of retirement, and, well, not even retirement, out of broadcasting after 2 to 3 years to challenge Cejudo. I get why Cejudo did this. It felt kind of cheap for me, though, like a money grab for him to just go back and fight Cruz. Because originally he was supposed to fight Aldo, right? And Aldo was coming off of 2 losses, and it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, he was supposed to fight Aldo, but Aldo had fought, was it Moraes?
I'll pull it up right now. I'm on the UFC website. Hang on. Keep going.
All right, yeah. Oh, yeah, Aldo had fought Marlon Moraes, and I thought Moraes had won. A lot of people argue that Aldo had won, but in the end, Moraes did win that. Moraes fought Cejudo, and Cejudo beat Moraes. So he was trying to fight Aldo anyway, and he felt Aldo over Moraes was the real fight. So he's been going after Aldo for a while. I don't know exactly. Oh, I think the reason why that one didn't get planned for this time around was because of COVID. I'm not 100% sure on that, though.
No, it was because he was stuck in Brazil.
Okay, so there's
Aldo
that.
Aldo was.
Yeah, Aldo was. So then, yeah, they got Cruz, and Cruz has been trying to come back for a while. He's just so injury-prone, though, and just has terrible luck. That's why he's been out for 3 years.
Well, now he is the 12th ranked bantamweight after getting TKO'd by Cejudo. Did you think they stopped the fight too early?
This one, so after the first 8 punches that Cruz took, I would say stop the fight. And then a few more came. He took 11 total. Not all of them landed. That would have been the time to stop the fight. But when the fight got stopped, Cruz was already back on his way up. I think the referee, no nonsense, Keith Peterson, he just couldn't find a way in there as Henry was swinging, and maybe that's what delayed him just enough. It's tough. It's a split answer for me, yes and no. The time of the stoppage, yes, it was an early stoppage. But if you look 4 seconds earlier, you would say no, it's not an early stoppage because Cruz was getting beat down on his head. Overall, I think it was a clean stoppage. Keith saw the hits that were landing and decided to jump in. It's just he couldn't get his way in there until Cruz was going back up, and that's what created the controversy there at the end of the fight.
It's almost like he was just indecisive in a way. Then he just came in a couple seconds too late, like you're saying. So, because I mean, on merit, you get punched, and like you said, not all of them landed, but 11 straight punches is enough to end it. And of course, I think the people are playing into it, with it's the end of the round, but it's like it doesn't matter, if he's getting choked out and he taps with 2 seconds left, it's a tap. It doesn't matter if he's about to make it to the next round. You just have to respect it. So. Cejudo looked better though the whole fight though. He really looked it, and then he retires.
Oh yeah, I don't know if this is another one of his cringe-worthy moments. Maybe is he doing it to make a big comeback to say I'm back, or is he actually retired? I know he said he wants to go down as the greatest combat athlete all time, multiple-time Pan American Wrestling Champion. I believe the youngest USA gold medalist in wrestling. He has 2 simultaneous weight class, flyweight and current bantamweight champion.
Yep.
He wants to go down as the greatest of all time, greatest combat athlete, I should say, of all time. I guess he does have the record of it, but what makes the greats great is the defenses of those titles.
Yep.
He only has 1 defense on each title. And I think it was an easy way out. He gets to claim that he goes out on top, and in his eyes, he's the greatest. I don't know. It was an odd thing to do, but if he feels he's accomplished everything to this point, then good for him. He's been training since he was a kid. He's been doing this every day of his life. And he has the 2 titles, the gold medal, all the accolades to his name. I guess he can go for it.
I think he needs about 7 more title defenses before I put him above GSP. So he's got.
Now he did take out Mighty Mouse, who defended the belt 12 or 13 times.
That's true.
But okay, so you took him out. I mean, a guy's gonna lose eventually, and when you hear the fighters talk, they always say getting the belt's the easy part. It's the defending which is hard. So now there's no new belts for him to get unless he tries to jump up to be a true 145er, which he's way too small to do.
Yeah, Volkanovski would destroy him.
It would be a wreck. So he's obviously not doing that. And then, now this is where the challenge comes, to defend the belts. And it seems like he just pulled out of it just to say, hey, look at me, I went out on top. So I think it was a cringe-worthy move, but it's really no surprise. And good for him, though. Good for him winning the belts, going out. Hopefully we don't have to hear from him again.
Oh, good for him, because he's about to negotiate a multi-million-dollar thing to come back. That's what this is, right? I mean, I know you're being very respectful of a bantamweight champion who could mess both of us up.
Yes.
But you look at the division right now. He has beat Morales. Sterling's number 2, who's been on a tear. Peter Yan's number 3, who has also been on a tear. And you go down the division, you still have Aldo. You still have some legit fighters. I mean, it's like, for instance, if we look at Jones, because he's the best example of this, multiple times, excuse me, Jones has just cleaned out his division. And there was literally no one else. Right now, you could maybe make an argument, but like we touched on earlier, we don't blame him now because he's just done it so many times. This division is not at all cleared out. And Cejudo's 33, which sounds old if you're used to NBA, but for fighters, like we were talking about earlier, it takes a while to get to the UFC and get here. This is right about the prime and where you defend and do this stuff. So it just smells like he wants a bigger contract, because here he's ranked as the 3rd men's pound for pound fighter behind Jon Jones and Khabib, and I don't necessarily know if he's paid that way because he's not like Conor, he's not even like DC or Usman, or Holloway. He's not yet like that big of a name, but part of the reason is because he hasn't defended the belt multiple times yet. And so that's the whole thing, is like, he might think he's the best yet. He's not. I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously very worthy champion. He kicked Cruz's ass. But if you're talking about wanting to be that level, you just still have to prove it to us. Getting on this card's a big thing because so many people are watching with this being 249. But there's a reason Tony Ferguson and Gaethje were the main event and not Cejudo.
So exactly, and let's go back. Let's throw out Marlon Moraes' name because he's already beat Marlon. You have Aljamain, Peter Yan, and Corey Sandhagen at 2, 3, and 4. I don't see him walking away from those 3 fights with the belt. One of those fights he loses, and I think it would be Aljamain right off the bat. Right off the bat, it would be Aljamain to take the belt from him. Like I said, he just sees the challenges ahead. And he just wanted to go out on top. I don't know if that's the heart of a champion or not. I think he should fight for it. If he wants to be considered the greatest combat athlete of all time, you have 3 names in front of you that if you beat, they will help propel you up there, because that's 3 more title defenses over 3 big names in the UFC right now. Not to mention, you have Jimmy Rivera, Cody Garbrandt in that, Song Yadong, John Dodson. I know John's a little on the older side now. He's still fun to watch. Yeah, that top 5. Yeah, he should have to come back, I think. But negotiating his payday, so that'd be cool. If he does come back for a big payday, can't hate on him for it. And I'd love to see him get his ass kicked by one of those guys.
Sterling and Jan apparently were already just talking like, hey, want to do an interim fight for the belt? Which would be entertaining as hell if Cejudo does stay retired. Although he would let them probably do that, then try to make a unification bout later or something. That's what he'd probably try to do. So our wonderful main event, hyped up, lived up to every moment of the every piece of hype you could have given it. Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje wins by 5th round TKO. I think it's one of the only times I've ever seen a fight stopped when the fighter who is losing is still on his feet, because Tony Ferguson isn't real. He's not alive. I mean, Ngannou looks the part, right, of just superhuman. Tony Ferguson just looks weird. Like, his shoulders just look weird. And then you see him fight, and it's like he has been punched in the face. He has to have 25 concussions, and yet he's still standing there. And he wore it this fight, but usually he doesn't. He didn't even look like any other fighter took the punishment he took in this fight. I think they would have died. And he's just like, nah, I could still fight. I could finish it, but obviously the correct decision to stop it, and no protest from Tony Ferguson. I mean, as much as this is Gaethje's ascendancy, and he will fight Khabib next, you would think, and that should be a great fight as a Nerve champion, you got to feel for Tony Ferguson. I mean, this is just 8 years, 12 straight fights winning, never fought for a title. And I mean, I know it's been a variety. They tried so many times to get him and Khabib set up for UFC, but this is how UFC is supposed to work. You do well enough, you fight for the title, you either lose and work your way back up, or you become champion. And it's so unfair that Ferguson never got that.
It is, and it sucks for him. So, God, there's just so much to touch on this fight. Yeah, Ngannou doesn't look human, but he is. Ferguson kind of, like you said, looks weird, but not human at all. I'm surprised Gaethje didn't pass out or just go down himself from the power he was throwing. He's used to knocking those punches that he hit, and I'm not talking about like 10 or 20 punches. I'm talking about all 108 plus significant strikes that Justin Gaethje landed. He knocks opponents out with those all the time. So for Tony not to go down, that just shows his heart, his toughness. That had to affect Gaethje mentally. Like, why the hell is this dude not falling? It's sad. Ferguson cut weight 3 weeks ago because right before this card was supposed to happen 3 weeks ago, and then it didn't. But Ferguson still cut weight. Did that take a toll on him? Maybe. We could argue that he was training. He's been in training camp for 10 plus weeks to fight a wrestler in Khabib, and now he fights this just brawler in Justin. Could that have played a part in his loss? Yes. But overall, Justin Gaethje fought out of his mind. This was the best he has ever looked. If you watch his previous fights, he has the mindset of going in there, getting knocked out, and knocking the other guy out. This time, when he had Ferguson hurt, he didn't bum rush him and try to throw furies and just overwhelm him. No, he stepped back, calculated it, took his time, and that's why he won. Plus, the corner advice he was receiving was great. Not sure if you caught it, but I think it was going into the fifth round. His corner man said, "Don't get too relaxed, because last time that happened, you got knocked out." And Gaethje goes, "Yeah, 2 times." So they were telling him the right stuff. They were reeling him in, telling him not to get too relaxed with this. I mean, you're fighting Tony Ferguson. He's knocked people out with elbows from his back. This dude does everything. So you can't relax. Justin just fought a great fight overall.
Yeah, it was insane. And especially, in the early rounds, Tony can just take punishment like no other person as he did in this fight. But, for me, I was just waiting, round 3, round 4, round 5, just waiting for him to beat Tony Ferguson. He just wasn't. I mean, and that's a credit to Justin, because no one has done that to Tony Ferguson. So Ferguson only drops the number 2 ranked contender. So, and I mean, looking at this lightweight division, I don't even know. I mean, obviously he fractured his orbital bone, like I mentioned earlier. So he's not thinking about fighting for a little bit, but actually knowing Tony Ferguson, he's probably already training.
He's thinking about it. It's the doctors that aren't letting him.
Yeah, I mean, this absolutely loaded division, and I know Dana said September is possible for Khabib versus Justin for a unification bout, and that would be fantastic. And I think Gaethje has a real shot, because the thing is, you said Gaethje's not a wrestler. The thing is, he was a college wrestler, and he just chooses. I don't know if he chooses, but he just doesn't use it. So I mean, people have been throwing that out there. UFC experts that watch this more than I do, as the fact that because normally, I mean, you saw with the Conor fight, even though Conor was one of the few people to take a round off of Khabib, is that Khabib just mauls you to the ground and you can't do anything. Well, I don't know, maybe not. And I would not want to be Khabib getting caught up on the feet with Justin Gaethje, and getting caught shooting in for a takedown with an uppercut or something like that, because Gaethje would put him to sleep in that situation.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to make it sound that Justin isn't a wrestler. Yeah, he has the college wrestling background. He's won it at the highest levels. He is a great wrestler. He just chooses not to use it, and he's turned himself into a brawler. But yeah, if he fights Khabib, it'll be interesting definitely to see what his takedown defense is like against Khabib and how well he handles that pressure. Can he put the pressure on Khabib in the wrestling format? I don't know, because we've never seen Justin wrestle, which is kind of scary because you don't know what he can do. We know what he can do with his hands, and I think he beats Khabib with the hands. I don't know if he can beat Khabib with the wrestling, but it will definitely pose a different obstacle that Khabib hasn't seen yet with a top-tier wrestler like Justin. For
sure. And just, once again, we touched on it, but just incredible performance by him. Obviously, performance of the night bonus. And he just destroyed what a man that many people just thought was invincible. So, I mean, just insane. That fight was insane. And insane, fight to end the night with, too. So, and like I was saying earlier, that lightweight division's loaded. Like, I know we don't know what Tony's going to do next, but I mean, you got Dustin Poirier at 3, who's a very good fighter, who lost to Khabib in a former unification bout. You have Conor at 4, Dan Hooker at 5, Paul Felder 6, Oliveira at 7, who submitted Kevin Lee recently, who himself is at 9. I mean, it's crazy. It's insane.
Iaquinta went a full 5 rounds with Khabib on a one-day notice. This was back a few years ago when Tony was supposed to fight Khabib, and then he stumbled on a media wire at a press conference.
That's right.
And tore his ACL. Iaquinta steps up on one-day notice and goes 5 full rounds with Khabib. So don't count him out, too. That whole top 10 is loaded. I say it's Justin versus Khabib, and then maybe we do a Dustin Conor or a Hooker versus Conor. I don't know how they go from there, but there's a lot of great matchups to be made there.
I do have a couple of downloads on this show from Ireland, so maybe Connor has listened before.
That'd be great if Connor has listened. Maybe you can get him as a guest.
Oh goodness, he'd yell at me the whole time and tell me how he wants to fight Justin Gaethje. He's going on another rant, and I mean I get it. Yes.
What did you think of it? What was the reaction to it?
It's just like, look, I mean, I get it's in his personality. And I like Connor. Max, my brother, for people that don't know. His favorite fighter is Connor. He loves Connor. He loves the swagger and everything. So I get it that it's a part of him. But, like, interim belt, you're not fighting for an interim belt, unless Khabib, like, dies or is in the hospital for something. Like, that it's just not going to happen next, And he's talking about it being in July and stuff. It's like... It reminded me if he had too much of his Irish whiskey at one night, which honestly I was disappointed in a little bit. I didn't think it was that good when I had it when I tried it. But it's just like relax. Like, you beat Cowboy, and not to offend your boy Cowboy, but Cowboy stumbled a little here, and it's like, I don't know, like he is number 4, so a title fight isn't necessarily out of the question. But like we talk about with this low division, like fight someone else, prove it again, in a fight that lasts longer than 40 seconds. That's my whole thing. It's an interim belt. You're not gonna. The next fight is gonna be the unification, and you just have to accept that. I don't know what his end goal was, because he has to know that.
Like Gaethje had responded, showing how he's asked Conor for fights before, and he also mentioned how Conor's lost some of his clout, which he has. He hasn't been around. He hasn't been extremely active. Unfortunately, I'm a huge Conor fan. I do think he gets ahead of himself, though. But like you said, the cockiness, the swagger, being loud, that's why we know the name Conor McGregor.
Right.
That's why everybody knows him. So it doesn't surprise me. I think he knows that he's not getting that fight with Justin, but he just wanted to get his name out there, maybe rile up some of the other contenders in that division. I mean, if you're Poirier, who's ahead of McGregor, and you see him calling out Justin, be like, hey, what about me? Or even some of the guys down the line. Iaquinta. I think Iaquinta versus McGregor would be a good fight.
Yep.
Charles Oliveira would be a good fight. There's other people to go against, but McGregor's always trying to chase. McGregor's the big name in the fights. So the bigger the name he can get, the more money he gets paid. Because his payday between Gaethje or Iaquinta is going to be different, and it's going to be a higher payday on Gaethje. So he's chasing that. He just wants to stay relevant right now, and I think that's what he's going for. But yeah, let Gaethje and Khabib fight it out. Let's get that belt, see what happens, and then go from there. In the meantime, McGregor, go pick somebody else's ass to beat. Just do it, prove yourself, show that you still got it, and that you haven't let all this fame and money and all your proper 12 go to your head.
Well, that's the rumor about him fighting Masvidal, right?
Yeah,
would be insane.
That would be great too. I would not be mad at that fight for 1 second.
Yeah, that would break the record for pay-per-view. It would have to, I would think, if that did happen.
You get Conor in there, absolutely. Now you're going to put him against Game Bread, Street Jesus, the title holder of the BMF belt.
The fakest belt in history.
Let's break some records, all right? That's a good fight. But I also don't know if too many people want to fight McGregor anymore. I mean, just because he has lost his clout. He is not that as big as he once was before. And is it worth it for Masvidal to fight him? or should he get something with Tyrone Woodley, or I'm sorry, not Tyrone, or should he get the belt chance against Usman?
Right.
Jorge's more interested in that belt, not Conor.
Yeah, I mean, Masvidal too is the only one of the few people, other than all the belt holders, that the payout for a pay-per-view is irrelevant in their fight with McGregor, because they're just as big of a star of themselves. Like if you're looking at like Dan Hooker, Dan Hooker, great fighter, and would be a fantastic fight against Conor. But if you put Dan Hooker against someone else that's not Conor, even Poirier, it's not going to do as well as if he fights Conor, and he can just put those pay-per-view buys in the back pocket there, and that's just the benefit of fighting Conor. So I do think some people still will be like, well, this is a money grab, and I still have a chance, and if you beat McGregor, everyone's going to know your name next as well, and that's part of the reason why Khabib is so famous too. So it's interesting.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if they want to fight McGregor strictly for the money.
Yeah.
That's why not? I mean, the money you get paid just for fighting McGregor compared to, like you said, Poirier or somebody else, it's just a world of difference.
Right. So, like I said, there was also Wednesday night fights, and I just want to highlight a couple of them as we are nearing the 1 hour mark, which has been fantastic. What'd you say?
Wow. I said already?
Yes.
Time flies. I'm enjoying myself. All right, I'll quit talking so much. You go ahead and
no, that's the best part about this. This is why I do this. It's just great. You lose yourself in conversation. So we already covered a little bit about Anthony Smith and Glover Teixeira, and I know we were talking about it before the show too, with Anthony Smith going through the whole thing with people invading his home. Those two light heavyweights were the main event of Wednesday night's show. Anthony Smith looked good for the first round and a half, and then after round 3, he told his corner he started losing his teeth. And it was, I wouldn't say Tony Ferguson, the fight was sad, because you still had that feeling that Tony, would do something and come up, and Tony also just, other than the orbital fracture, wasn't necessarily, he had cuts and such, but it wasn't so abundantly clear that he was done. He looked himself, but Anthony Smith just looked like he was literally just walking around as a carcass. I mean, he in rounds 3, 4, and 5, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just a punch hit him, and obviously he could have just been concussed, and that would have made sense. But just it just all shut down. And I know you were talking about some of the dialogue you saw that was happening between the fighters themselves, which is part of the cool thing with no crowd. But it was just horrible. And he only dropped one spot, and somehow Glover didn't move up in the rankings. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly how the rankings work, but I found that to be surprising, because this was a clinic by Glover. I mean, even more than that, whereas for Justin, I felt so hyped for him because he performed so well. I just feel sad for Anthony Smith.
Oh, I feel terrible for him, but his nickname is Lionheart, and it showed in that fight. He, like you said, his teeth were falling out after the 3rd round, and he still went in there and battled. He was getting his ass kicked all over that ring, but he didn't give up himself. He stayed in there. He played defensive. He almost was too defensive, because if he would have just let the hits come, he could have got out of that a lot sooner and not taken that pounding. But, due to the lack of crowd and everything, you can hear the dialogue really well between the fighters. And in the 4th or the 5th round, there's a point where Glover, I think it was in the 5th round right before the finish, Glover was on top of him. And as he's hitting Anthony, he's just apologizing like, "I'm sorry, pal, it's just part of the business." And Anthony responded with, "Yeah, it's all good, buddy. I understand." And even though these guys are beating the crap out of each other, or more, Glover's beating the crap out of Anthony, they're still friendly with each other. There's no bad blood right there. It's the job, but I think the fight shouldn't have gone on that long. I wish his corner would have stopped it, or the referee would have jumped in, but he was doing enough to keep the fight alive and show that maybe there was some chance that he had left in the end, just when it was enough. Yeah, it was sad to watch. It was rough. I just hope that he can bounce back from this bigger than he was before and have another title run.
Yeah, because he was in that mix, like we kind of talked about earlier, with the light heavyweight potential next challenger for John Jones, and now he's got to work. I mean, like I said, he dropped to 4th, so not that far down. But I mean, he's not going to be getting a John Jones fight anytime soon after that. And I think shame on his corner too, a little bit. I know I don't understand the mentality of these guys and stuff like that. But when your fighter in between rounds is saying he's losing his teeth and you say breathe, I don't. That just doesn't compute for me. It's just wrong in my opinion.
Yeah, they should have done a better job at tossing it in. But yeah, we don't know the mentality of these guys. That's dangerous. Who knows what that did to his career? I mean, after the second round, it was in the second round where halfway through the second round where he was starting to lose everything, and it looked like it was going to go out. And it was halfway through the third. My apologies. It looked like he was about to get finished, and he didn't. And he took so much more abuse, unnecessary abuse, than was needed at that point. Like, his teeth are falling out. Don't tell him to breathe. Tell him that the fight may need to stop right here.
Yeah, preserve the fighter for another day. So,
yeah,
truly. And now we've hit the hour mark. So, you don't know this, but I'm just going to say I had always planned to end this podcast with a few minutes talking about our new shared boy, Drew Dober.
Drew Dober. Yes. Okay. I am so happy that we are part of the Drew Dober fan club. We are. Okay, Drew Dober, he doesn't have a number next to his name. I don't know why. Well, he may now. He better this week after that finish. He's had some good finishes in his last 3 fights. Before Wednesday night, his last fight was a knockout in 70 seconds. I don't know why they've been sleeping on him. He's been great. This week they gave him the respect that he needed by making him a favorite, and it's only going to continue to be that way for him. He is in he's in that lightweight division, so he's going to be moving on up. He has a lot of people in front of him. Like, he just took out Hernandez, and Hernandez was ranked 15 before this fight. Not anymore. Just look at the names in front of him. He has Hernandez, Gillespie, Cerrone, Barboza, Lee. Then we work our way into the top 10. Even just going with Gregor and Cerrone and Barboza, those are 3 good fights that he could get. Drew Dober, yeah, that's my boy. I'm just rambling on right now about him.
It was just hilarious because I think it was one of the first. He fought on Connor's card, right? The 246 was his last fight. Okay, so there was the first pay-per-view I bought with all my friends after over the winter break. I started really I was like, this UFC stuff's awesome, and you were obviously the one person in my life who I'm like knows everything up to the date right now. So you're texting me like, Drew Dober, this guy's legit, like he's gonna win. He was like a 3-1 underdog, I think, for that fight. And like you said, 70 seconds. So I was like, oh, okay. And then for this past card, Katie, my girlfriend, was asking me, she's like, yeah, is there anyone like you like tonight? I was like, well, I don't know too many names. I'm still getting into the deeper levels of the sport, whatever. And I was like, but Drew Dober, I remembered completely. Ryan told me about whatever. And then they show his weight. I'm like, oh my God, I never knew he was so handsome. And then we had like a text exchange at the same time, and that just cemented it. We were sending separate texts, and they delivered at the same time for us talking about Drew Dober, and we're in this now forever. I still feel like you said it's okay already, but I still feel like I'm piggybacking a little bit off of your deep find because I mean, like you said, he should be ranked this week, but he hasn't been ranked the past 2 fights he's gone into. So this was a deep find for you. I feel like I'm piggybacking off of it a little bit, but if you say it's okay, I guess it's okay.
The way I see it, he's not ranked yet, so we're still creating it. I'm just whoever wants to follow with me, we're in this together.
I think with all the obviously you're the new assist UFC expert, so I think every big event we'll do something like this, but especially anytime Drew Dober fights, let's get its own 10-minute segment. That's it. We're gonna analyze every minute by minute.
I'm down. Next time Drew Dober fights, if it's on a shit card, we can just do a 10-minute podcast about Drew Dober and call it good. I am 100% okay with it. Let's push the dude.
We are part of the Drew Dober. Maybe we could tweet at him. We'll get some clout for the podcast. But yeah, so there are fights on Saturday. I think I will let's see, it's a little late now. I think I'll release this probably Saturday morning. Is there anything that, should people be listening to this right before Saturday, you would like to be on the record already? You're saying it just in case people also download this on Monday. I don't know if you're familiar with Big Cat. He does this all the time. He'll make a prediction that is just wrong. But you're going to make your correct prediction. What do you want to say that when this airs that you can't take back about this Saturday card?
Okay, well, Angela Hill is going to win hands down. She actually fought on the UFC Brazil card, so she was at the first fight without an audience and all that stuff. Claudia Gadelha, she's strong. She's been making her way through it, but I just hope Angela Hill takes it. Let's see. Oh, the Eric Anders versus Krzysztof Jotko fight. That should be interesting. Eric, I believe, is coming off some losses, so I'm interested to see how he bounces back. I think he wins the Overeem versus Walt Harris
main event.
Excuse me. That's a fight I'm kind of torn on. I'm a fan of Overeem, have been for a while. He's just a brawler, but he gets knocked out a lot. Walt Harris, his stepdaughter, actually last year I was seeing on the news about a girl that had been abducted and was missing, and they eventually found her body, but it was Walt Harris's stepdaughter. So he's been out of fighting for a few months now. This fight against Overeem has been scheduled for a while, and it keeps getting pushed back, but this is his first fight back since his daughter has passed away, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I'm torn on it. All right, Harris, Overeem, 5 rounds. I don't know what to say. I'm so torn. I think what I want is a decision in Overeem's favor, but Harris has a good fight, and we know that he's so strong. What's going to happen? I think Harris with a knockout. I don't know what round. Harris with a TKO or a KO finish.
Wow. I mean, that'd be great.
If he can harness that energy in the right way, and just all the emotions he's been feeling over the last few months with everything personal that's happened. Overeem coming off a knockout loss of his own, which was a controversial knockout, by the way. But I can see Harris getting it done via knockout.
There we go. It's your official predictions.
Harris and Hill. Angela Hill, that I can't tell you if that's going to be a submission or a decision, but Angela Hill's winning her fight for sure.
There you go. You heard it here first. Probably not, but we're just going to go with it.
That's your first UFC podcast listening to. Then you got it.
Everybody who's made it through this far.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, Ryan, this was awesome. Definitely a success, and we're going to have to keep doing these as more of these fights roll out. I know we were to be coming to Las Vegas soon, and we're hopefully some states are easing restrictions here, and we can get back to international fighters and just all the glory. I mean, I know we got a lot of pent-up fighters waiting to take some anger out, so can't wait for those.
I'm definitely looking forward to doing more of these, and as long as this is the only sport in town right now, in the country that's live, jump on the bandwagon, folks. Check it out. See what it's about. Just go for it. Yeah, so tomorrow's fight is in Jacksonville, and then after that, they're moving it back to the UFC Apex. And I know Dana is hoping to have Fight Island ready for June fights to go.
Fight Island
opens up the possibilities of getting international fighters back involved in this to create better and more exciting bouts. And it should just be a fun ride. We'll see what happens.
It's truly fantastic. Thank you for coming on today.
All right. Thanks, Zach, for having me.